when you will be encountering or solving problems involving projectile motion, most of the time or always, you will encounter three scenarios or three situations or three cases. So the first case na may encounter ninyo, again, take note ha, na different cases, iba-iba yung manipulation natin for the variables. Remember, ang kailangan natin malaman na formula for range, ano pa yung nasa objectives? Time of flight, ano pa yon? Velocity, ano pa yon? Height, maximum height. Iba-iba tayo ng equations for those variables. Even though hindi lang naman ito yung i-solve natin. Pwede pa, meron pang other related na mga variables like theta. Pwede din natin i-solve si theta. Related man siya sa velocity. Pwede din natin i-solve related sa velocity si final y or final velocity x. So lahat ng mga related sa mga variables na yan. So we have the first situation. We have level ground. Yan. So ibig sabihin, sa problem, meron ka daw level na ground. Yan. So ganito yung forma ng problem. Level ground, and then you have an object. You have an object, for example, a soccer ball, and that object will be projected into the air at a particular angle other than 90. So it is projected into the air. It will reach the maximum height. Okay, it will reach the maximum height, and then it will go back to the ground. So, ayan. So, nandito na after some time yung ating object. Ayun. Okay? So, ano dito yung key? The key is, it is level na ground. Level lang yung ground natin. So, i-solve natin, ano yung, this is the range. Yan. Gaano ba siya kalayo? How far? That's the range. Gaano ba siya kataas? Yung maximum height natin. So, dy. Di ba? So, later, explain natin further yan. Erase ko muna ha. Okay, so that's the first case. Second case, we have, instead of being projected on a level ground, sa second case, we have an elevation. Elevation. Ayan. So there is some height, certain height, and then ground dito sa baba. Mura og ba, diving board. Nag-dive daw ka. Imagine, nag-dive ka sa diving board. Nado ka sa pool. Diba? Naka sa pool. Nag-dive daw ka, dive. So projectile yan po na siya. That's the second case of projectile. We have an elevation. And then, meron tayong object dito. This is our object. Yan. And then that object is projected horizontally. So horizontal yung pag-dive. Yan, nag-dive horizontally. Yan. And then of course, it will follow a parabolic path and then it will reach the ground or the surface. Nandito na after some time yung object natin. Okay, so imagine nasa diving board and then nag-jump ka horizontally. Nakuha? Again, this is elevated tapos horizontal yung pagka-project. Horizontal. Good? Okay. Now, the third case or the third situation, same pa din. Meron tayong elevation. Imagine lang nasa diving board ka. Meron tayong elevation. Yan. So, elevation. Yan. Surface. So, mo daw ang diving board. Okay, we have an object. Yan. Now, instead of being projected horizontally, that object is projected at an angle. Yan. At a particular angle. So, ibig sabihin, instead na nag-jump ka horizontally, niambak pag gamay. Di ba? Yun. And then after some time, it will reach the ground. Good? So those are the cases. Nako ha. So for example, mangutana ang problem is about soccer. Nagdula og soccer, gisipa ang bola sa soccer. What case is that? Case 1, case 2, or case 3? Case 1. Tama no? Soccer man. O, di ba? Tama si Shamsia. How about nagdulag basketball? O, ako, nagdulag og basketball. So, ako. So for example, na tao. Ako. Dire ang bola. Shoot na ko ang bola. Di ba? Of course, paana man ang shoot sa bola. Oh. So case 1, case 2, or case 3. So that is case 3. Tama? So that is how you analyze problems. Or mangihi ko. Depende. It's either case 3 or case 2. Or unsa pa ba? Dakan mga problems involving projectile motion. Or kana mga sa mga criminology students. Kanang unsa lang pagkabalo nga asa gikan ang bullet. Unsa lang pagkabalo asa na angle ang bullet. So that is projectile motion. Projectile motion lang yan. Question so far? So dapat you are familiar with the cases. Hello po sir and good morning. If object is thrown from the top floor of a building po sir, considered po ba siya na projectile or free fall? Depende siya, Ana. For example, if gagaya nito, if that object is thrown from the top of a building, paunsa man siya pag throw, Ana? Is it straight upwards? If that object is thrown straight upwards, then that is free fall. Kung straight upwards, free fall siya. Kay musaka, and then mubalik lang po sa baba. Yan. Again, given na walang mga walang wind. Walang wind. So dili siya mapalid. Straight. Basta straight upward and straight downward, that is free fall. However, if you are going to throw an object, kagaya nito, throw an object at a certain angle, na mag-follow siya og parabolic path, then that is a projectile motion. So keyword, straight up, straight down, free fall. At a certain angle, elevation. Certain angle elevation. At a certain angle, projectile motion. Other questions? None? Okay. So let us analyze what are the implications of the second case. Ito. So alis muna tayo sa reality dito alis muna tayo dito sa common experience natin. Analyze natin kung ano ba yung mga implications ng second case. Yan, abstraction na tayo na part. So for example, let us assume na meron tayong Earth, na tayo Earth's surface. Let's have a hypothetical scenario. Meron tayo, we are going to create a building, a very tall building. Napakataas na building, yan. Okay, napakataas na building. For example, nag-experiment daw diri si Leslie. And then Leslie na siya object na gidala. May object. Yun. So ang experiment ni Leslie, she is going to project or to throw that object, this object, i-throw na yung object na yan at a certain velocity horizontally. Throw niya horizontally. So that's the experiment. So first trial, mahina, mabagal lang yung pag-throw ni Leslie. So of course, straight, horizontal man, so bababa siya sa Earth. Tama? Bababa siya sa Earth's surface. That's very straightforward. Tama? Very straightforward. Now what if lakasan konti ni Leslie yung pag-throw niya? Lakasan konti yung pag-throw. Horizontal pa din. Lakasan konti ni Leslie yung pag-throw ng object. Of course, babalik pa din yan sa Earth's surface, but this time, mas malayo na yung aabutin ng ating object. Dito na siya banda bababa. Okay, mas malayo na yung narating ng ating object. Kasi nga, mas mabilis. yung pag-throw ni Leslie. Now, what if lakasan pa ni Leslie yung pag-throw? Lakasan pa ni Leslie yung pag-throw, lakasan pa yung pag-throw. This is hypothetical ha. Lakasan pa ni Leslie yung pag-throw ng object. Of course, mas malayo ngayon yung aabutin ng ating object. Nandito na siya banda sa Earth. Ako ha? Follow pa? Now, what if lakasan pa konti ni Leslie yung pag-throw? Lakasan pa ni Leslie konti sa fourth trial niya, lakasan pa niya konti yung pag-throw. So of course, mas malayo ngayon yung aabutin ng object ni Leslie. Yan, hanggang dito na. Alam niyo na saan ako papunta? Alam niyo na saan papunta yung hypothetical scenario natin? Now, what if lakasan pa ni Leslie? Hindi pa siya kontento. Lakasan pa niya yung pag-throw ng initial velocity. Mas mabilis ngayon. Yung initial velocity, mas malakas yung pagka-throw ni Leslie. Napakabilis, napakabilis, napakabilis. Of course, bababa pa din siya sa Earth. Pero, mas malayo na ngayon yung narating ng ating object. Alam niyo na saan papunta yung discussion? Ang hypothetical scenario? Naiisip niyo ba yung naiisip ko? Sige daw. Unsa kaya ang sunod ani nga situation? Unsa ang question nga possible? Is it possible? Sige daw. Naay same nga nakahuna-huna. Is it possible? Sige daw, mag-ask daw ko kung same ba ta og sino ba tag naisip? Ano daw si anay nag-chat? Walay nag-chat. Wala. Si Fitz na lang kay nag-chat si Fitz. Yes, Fitz. Kindly share your thought.
Sir, ano lang sir, feel lang na ako sir no kay gusto mo rag mubalik sa imo ang projectile sir.
Mubalik sa imuha ang projectile if ever
kung kusog jud kayo ang paglabay.
Yun. Kung kusog kayo ang paglabay ni Leslie, is it possible na yung projectile natin babalik, hindi na siya mag-fall sa ground, sa surface, babalik siya doon sa atin. Okay? And then, it will continue moving in circle. Ikot-ikot lang, ikot-ikot-ikot. Is it possible? Yes, that's possible. That's hypothetical. That's theoretically. Theoretically, that is possible. Ang tawag natin dyan is sa velocity na yan, di ba napakabilis dapat? Ang tawag natin sa velocity na yan, kung saan babalik yung projectile natin dito, it will orbit the Earth. Ang tawag natin dyan is orbital velocity. Orbital velocity. Ano kaya yung velocity para makaikot-ikot tayo? Ikot-ikot-ikot, ikot-ikot. That is how our satellites are being sent into orbit. Paano ba nag-send into orbit? For example, the Philippines. Meron tayong Philippine microsatellite na tawag natin is Diwata 1. That's the first microsatellite of the Philippines. Paano ba yung mga satellites natin nag-orbit sa Earth? Hindi naman sila nag-trial and error. Do you follow? So ang ginawa lang nila is that satellite must be projected into the air at a particular velocity, napakabilis. Tawag natin orbital velocity in such a way na it could balance the force due to gravity. So paikot-ikot lang siya. That is why if you notice yung mga orbits natin, yung mga ISS, International Space Station, bakit ba naka-orbit sila sa Earth? Yung mga radio communications natin ng mga satellites, bakit ba sila naka-orbit sa Earth? Okay, it is just an application of projectile motion. Okay, follow? So hindi lang basta-basta na solving lang ang ginagawa natin. It is applied. Klaro? Hindi naman pwede na mag trial and error ang NASA. Kagaya ng ginawa ni Leslie dito, mag-trial and error NASA. Okay, i-throw natin dito. I-throw natin dito yung Diwata. I-throw natin dito yung Diwata. I-throw natin dito yung Diwata. Hindi sila pwede mag-trial and error because that would cost a lot of resources, money, time, effort, etc. Ganun lang ginawa. Gamitin natin yung mga laws of physics. Nakuha. So ang ginagawa sa pag-send into orbit ng mga satellites, the satellite will be brought into space at a certain altitude, and then at a particular altitude, it will be projected horizontally. It will be projected into the air at a particular velocity para mag-ikot lang. Naku ha? Even the moon is also a projectile. It is continuously falling. Continuously falling. Pero hindi siya aabot sa surface ng Earth. May specific value po ba sa orbital? Yes, meron tayong specific value for the orbital velocity. How are we going to analyze orbital velocity? Of course, this is circle. What's the force associated with circle? Kapag circular ang motion natin, ano yung force? Centripetal force. So the centripetal force must be equal to the what is the force that attracts the object to the earth. What's the force that attracts the object to the earth? That's the gravitational force, tama? So para ma-balance, so dapat equal sila. So centripetal force must be equal to the gravitational force. Ba? So equate lang natin. Ano ba yung formula? Hindi pa natin na-discuss yung centripetal force, but maybe you're familiar with it sa junior high school. Centripetal force is mv squared over r. That's the formula for the centripetal force. Force due to gravity is g, mass of the object, mass of the earth, over r squared. Tama? So i-calculate lang natin yung velocity. This is the orbital velocity, itong v. So cancel si mass. So ibig sabihin, the mass of our object will not matter. Tama kasi nag-cancel out, oh. So even though ang ISS, meron kang napakabigat ng ISS compared sa diwata, so walang pake sa mass yung orbital velocity. The R will be cancelled. So meron tayong isa na naiwan. So the formula for the orbital velocity is v squared is equal to gme over r. Take the square root. Take the square root. Ayan. So v squared is equal to square root of gravitational constant, mass of the earth, and altitude. R is the altitude dito. Yan, kung gaano siya kataas. Mula sa center of the earth. Yan, gaano siya kataas. Follow? So given ang gravitational constant, given ang mass sa earth, given ang radius sa earth, pati yung altitude. So we can calculate the orbital velocity. For example, at 100 kilometers. For example lang ha, 100 kilometers mula dito sa surface, ano yung kailangan na velocity natin in order to orbit the earth? I-substitute lang natin dito. Hindi ko na i-substitute ha, naman ay value sa internet. That is approximately equal to 7,500 siguro? 7,500 meters per second. So dapat i-throw mo yung object at 7,500 meters per second para ikot-ikot lang. So masend siya into orbit. Questions? That is how satellites are being sent into orbits. Hindi naman nag-trial and error ang NASA. I-calculate lang. A few computation will save us sa mga expenses, sa costs, energy, and resources. 7,500 ba? I-search daw na to, Bing. 7,500 ba ang nakalimot ng Google? Wait lang ha, wait lang gid kaayo. Or i-search niyo diha basig na ay maka-search mo diha. Orbital velocity at lahi-lahi mo gud orbital velocity depende sa altitude. Kasi remember, ang isa sa variable natin is ang altitude. Ito. So magdepende siya. Inverse. So that means, kapag ka mas maliit yung altitude or shorter distance lang dito, dapat mas mabilis yung velocity nito. Kapag ka mas malayo yung radius, dapat mahina lang yung velocity. Ano yung orbital velocity at ano? Orbital velocity. Ano naman to eh? Orbital velocity. Asa naman to? Orbital velocity. Kailan gina? Ay di ko mahimutang. Kalimot mo go. 7,850 pala. 7,850 ang orbital velocity natin. Or you can just substitute it dito sa mga equations natin. Given naman ni sila tanan, substitute natin, it would give us 7,850 meters per second.